Welcome to this week's episode of the Prep Athletics Podcast. I'm proud to have joining us St. George's coach, Dwayne Pina. Now, Dwayne comes from New Bedford, Mass., and he did a walk-on spot at Boston College before earning a scholarship there. And then he coached at Bryant University when they were D2 under legendary prep school coach Max Good. Now, Max Good, we've talked about him on the podcast before. He's the guy that helped start or inspired Findlay Prep. He's the one that helped my cousin get into prep school before he played at Purdue and played in the NBA. He coached my high school coach in college, and my high school coach was an assistant for him. So Max Good has been a fixture, and Dwayne played for him. In fact, Max is down in Dallas right now. I don't know when this will air, but he's from Maine, established in Maine, and he is with the Flagg family, Cooper Flagg's family down in Dallas for the first 5 games, watching him and his progress. So fun talking about Max. And then he went to, and then Dwayne went and coached at Brown University. So we talk about the Ivy League, their level. And then he's been to St. George's now for 9 years. He's helped them make the transition from Class B to AA, where they've been for the past 2 years. And he's coached NBA player Tyler Kolek. And he talks about him transferring in and his work ethic. And St. George's is a beautiful school that's on the ocean in Rhode Island, and you can actually go surfing from there. That's what kind of school it is. So anyway, he's got other cool programs that the school offers that were pretty neat. So I really enjoyed this podcast with Coach Dwayne Pina from St. George's. And if you like this, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss out on this episode, future episodes, past episodes, or bonus content we have. So thanks for joining us and enjoy the podcast. Welcome to the Prep Athletics Podcast. This is Cory Heights.
Some battles. I'm not sure if they got us. If they did, maybe.
So you will get better as a player during that year.
So it was kind of exciting. Like, oh yeah, somebody wants me.
Dwayne, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Now, where did you grow up, and what got you into basketball?
Oh, wow. I'm from a small city about 60 miles south of Boston. It's called New Bedford, Massachusetts. Population of about 20,000. Urban area, very, very, very diverse. And I mean, what got me into basketball, that was just part of sort of what we did growing up. You know, I grew up in an era where, if it was baseball season, you played baseball. If it was basketball season, you played basketball. Football season, you played football. So that was just sort of my way of life, whether it was, various leagues around the city or at the Boys and Girls Club, but sports was just a part of who I am, part of my identity, part of the identity of everybody who I was around, growing up.
So you played all those sports, but you gravitated towards basketball and were good enough to play at Boston College. So during your high school career, who else did you look at besides Boston College, and why did you end up choosing the Eagles?
So, around that time, so I graduated high school in 1996, and, the AAU scene wasn't nearly what it is today. Around that time, it was the Bay State games, which were kind of like a local sort of mini Olympics for your area. And that's sort of where a lot of the exposure came from. My senior year, I had scholarship offers from a couple of Division II schools in the NE10. I had a lot of Division III interest. But I personally felt like I was a Division I caliber player. Sometimes they say, ignorance is bliss, and didn't have too much guidance in the college process, and just felt like I could play at a higher level. I would never advise anybody to go the route, that I went, and kind of doing it sort of, going through that college process without much guidance. But I decided to go to Boston College just as a student with an opportunity to walk on and play. And, I was fortunate enough to have that opportunity at the school through sort of like an open tryout. Ed Cooley, at the time, who was an assistant, a few years before he got to Boston College, was actually at Stonehill. So I had a little bit of a relationship, at that point, and some familiarity. But, I sort of tripped my way through, process, from being a walk-on to, a scholarship, athlete. starter on.
Nice. That's big time. And what did you, I mean, so you had in your mind you could have played in that level and you just needed to believe in yourself, or was there a coach that said you should do this, or where was the seed planted?
Um, I think it just always existed within myself. I had sort of people around me who were being recruited at that level that I was able to first get that firsthand gauge with, some of the folks that I was playing against, from the Boston area, the Hartford area, were getting that level of recruitment. And I didn't understand at the time, like why that wasn't happening in New Bedford. So that was sort of my benchmark. It was kind of like, well, if, this person can do it, why can't I?
Right.
And I just kind of, got locked in on tunnel vision and just went straight forward with my head barreled down.
I love it. And then after graduation, what'd you do before you got to Bryant in 2005?
So my first coaching job was at Rhode Island College, a Division III school in the Little East. I was hired by Jack Perry, who's now the head coach at Southern New Hampshire. So that 04-05 year, I was a part-time assistant at Rhode Island College while I was teaching at New Bedford High School. And then I was, again, fortunate enough the following year to get hired at Bryant. And that's kind of when I realized I wanted to do this, full time. So that 2005, 2006 season was my first sort of, full time coaching job.
And you coached for legendary coach Max Good, which I don't know if I've told you the whole story. The reason I'm here today is because of Max Good, because of how he helped my cousin Brad Miller at MCI and how, my high school coach played for him in college and coached with him. Max Good helped create Finley Prep, which has helped create all the basketball academies out there. So Max Good is just a legend. We tried to get him on the podcast. He's the only guest ever that could not figure out Zoom. So
yeah, that sounds like Max.
Probably best. Probably
he would
best
love to be on the podcast. He loves to share his story. I mean, he's, a treasure chest full of wisdom and incredible stories. One of my best friends till this day. He's actually in Dallas now. He's very good friends with the Flag family, so he's there for the first 5 games.
Sure.
In Dallas. But you're right, the man is a legend, and I owe a lot of my career and the things I've been able to accomplish, with my professional career to Coach Good.
Yeah, give me one. What's your main takeaway that you still use today that you learned from Coach Good?
It's funny. I just actually said this the other day. Prisons and cemeteries are full of people who make bad 5-second decisions.
Interesting. I love that quote. That's great. That sounds like something that come out of his mouth. I imagine there'd be some cuss words in a weird combination in that if he was saying in the heat of the moment.
Those sets of words didn't have any cuss words. It was just, always an emphasis on making sure our guys are making the right decisions. And, the quote doesn't have to be taken to that extent, but, whether you're, writing a paper and, make sure you're using your words, just so there's a lot of different meanings that you can take from that quote. But
absolutely. And when you were at Bryant, you guys were starting to transition from D2 to D1. Is that correct?
Correct. So my first 4 years at Bryant with Coach Good, actually might have been my first 3 years. We were in the NE10. The year before I got to Bryant, so that 04-05 season, they were in the Division II National Championship. They got beat to Virginia Union. And then there were talks after my first year being at Bryant about transitioning to Division I, but that didn't happen until, 3 or 4 years after I got there.
Gotcha. Okay. And you went from there to Brown, right? And a lot of the kids you and I talked to, really their ultimate goal is to play in the Ivy Leagues. What do players and parents need to know about the Ivy Leagues that's maybe not that obvious?
Oh man. I guess the first thing is that the level of basketball, the level of talent, in the Ivy League probably supersedes what they think that it is, right?
Right.
Again, I'm a huge quote person, and one of my favorite quotes is from Alan Stein, who's talking about, so I was on a Steph Curry video. He talks a lot about are your habits of today on par with your dreams of tomorrow? And I think kids just, families sometimes just tend to think, oh, it's Brown, oh, it's Harvard, oh, it's Yale. Like my son can play there, but like those schools are playing basketball at a really, really high level. Those schools are winning, NCAA tournament games. Those schools are beating high majors. Those schools are, very competitive with high major schools. I mean, if you look at the team RPIs, a lot of times the Ivy League is, somewhere between, I don't know, 9 and 13, depending on a given year. But I do think that families need to, make sure. One of the things now as a high school coach, I tell my guys is that, if we need to be aligned with what your college expectations are. Like if I think that, you should be in the UAA or thinking UAA and you're thinking ACC, we're not aligned. That's a problem. And I think sometimes with families, if they're thinking, Ivy and the Ivy League has them pegged as, again, high level basketball at the UAA level, but just using that for an example. But they pegged at that level, then that sort of discrepancy, that delta that exists, it just makes for a long recruiting process. So I think the sooner you can get to, what the market's dictating your level is, the better off the process and the smoother the process goes. And again, I always have this on the back of the mind because of my story. I'll never tell an athlete, like, don't go to school XYZ. Like that'll never come
Right.
from me because of my background.
Yeah, love it. Thanks for sharing that on the Ivies, because that's a topic a lot of our kids want to get to. So, and now, yeah, they are getting better and better as each year goes on. So now talk about your school, St. George's. Give us your pitch on St. George's as a school and then as a basketball program that you offer.
But one of the things with like pitches is, and this has always kind of been my style, is I'm not a car salesman, right? Like I think every institution I've been at, I think I personally have selected because of the value the institution has and the value I think I can add. So as far as a pitch, I don't have one. I just think I can present something that I truly believe in. When I left Brown, I had a great job at Brown. I wasn't even looking for another job. Mike Martin was the head coach there. He was, our first season together, he was 29 years old. His career trajectory is, skyrocketing upwards. So I had a good job at Brown. I was getting a little bit older. And a good friend of mine who was also in the ISL, used to always tell me about, the quality of life of these jobs. And so when I transitioned here, I saw an opportunity. I saw an institution that had, whose values I was aligned of. I saw an institution that, recognized and appreciated, having a Black man, not only as the basketball coach, but as a faculty member in the community, which again, that was a value that I held dear to me. I saw an opportunity, to continue to help uh, serious basketball players that aspire to play in college who were also high academic students. So typically, St. George's, we are an all gender 9 through 12 independent boarding school. We're small, which is something that I liked. I love the location. I think our location is a huge part of our identity. Who doesn't want to play basketball by the ocean? So yeah, I mean, in terms of the school, I think the school sells itself. I think when I am recruiting families, their level of interest is automatically peaked simply because of what the school is. In the New England independent boarding school ethos, where, we probably rank somewhere in the top third of, all the schools here in New England. And then as far as a basketball program, it's something that, I'm proud of here, that we've been able to build with institutional support. My first year here, we won 3 games, and here we are now, 9, 10 years later. I think we're one of the, premier basketball destinations in New England.
I love it. Thanks for sharing that. And then, I tell people, all these prep schools have different personalities, and Millbrook's got a zoo, Tabor's got a marine biology lab, Berkshire's got a flight simulator. And I always mention St. George, you can go surfing at lunch.
Yeah. And we've got a lot amazing signature programs here too. So,
like what?
yeah.
What else?
And I say this too all the time, like all these schools are amazing institutions, right? Like they're all like these intentional 24-hour communities, that were created to nurture adolescents, to help them grow. But like, I don't know, some of our school signature program, the school owns a 70-foot marine biology vessel that it's called Geronimo that literally sails around the world with our students. We have a program, an endowed program called the Roger Scholars Program that takes, I don't know, 10 to 15 students down to Washington, D.C. for a week where they learn all about how the government functions. And, they visit with high-level officials in the White House and the Pentagon, in Congress, et cetera. We have another program called Dragons in Hollywood, which connects those of our students that want to be involved in the entertainment industry, whether it's, theater or film. They actually go to Hollywood and or New York City and just kind of get a feel for how that works. We have another program called Building Bridges that I'm actually the director of that connects aspiring educators from HBCUs to independent schools. And at the same time, it connects independent school students to HBCUs. So there's a lot going on here at the school, outside of the basketball program, that we're proud of.
I love it. Thanks for sharing those programs. That's great that sets you apart, right? Now, one of the questions parents always ask me is, what kind of development does this basketball program do with their players? So talk to me about how you get your players better.
Yeah, so this fall, what our fall preseason schedule looked like is all of our quote unquote recruited basketball players here all participate in strength and conditioning programs. So we have a brand new wellness center here. It was opened, I think, 3 years ago. Everything in there is brand new, beautiful facility. We have 3 full-time strength and conditioning coaches. So that happens 6 days a week in the fall, with one of the days being an active recovery day. In addition to strength and conditioning, we're doing, individual skill work with outside trainers that come in. We're also doing, we're playing pickup. We're doing, guys have captains practices. And then the last thing they were all responsible to do is we have a 7-block schedule. And most of our guys only take 5 classes, so they have 2 blocks off. And we sort of have an agreement between myself and our team is that one of those blocks, our student athletes have to be in the gym just getting like volume shooting up. So collectively on a week, and we have a pool workout once a week. So collectively through the week, we have strength and conditioning. We have, they'll have an individual skill workout. They'll have a pool workout. They'll have like an active recovery day. They'll play pickup. They'll have captain's practice. So there's a lot going on to keep our guys busy. And, one of the benefits of coming to a boarding school like St. George's is the access to resources like
Right.
the court, the pool, the weight room. Your teachers are all a stone's throw away.
Yeah, I love that. That's one of the big pitches on prep schools is that, it's right there. And you said volume, right? You get volumes of shots up. We use that all the time talking to families. That's just going to go up exponentially versus where they're at currently. So, and walk me through this. You've only got a varsity and a JV team, right? You don't have multiple teams, like 2-team system.
Correct.
Okay. So with that being said, you got to be more selective on who you take on and who you recruit. So what kind of player are you looking for, Dwayne?
So first, the way that our league in our school works, when I say league, I'm talking about the independent school league, is
Mm.
there's no postgraduates in our league. And then institutionally, we very, very, very rarely accept seniors, right? Our new enrolled seniors, no postgrads, no seniors. As an institution, we take a handful of juniors, maybe 4 to 8, depending on the given year. We'll take anywhere from like 18 to 24 sophomores, and then we'll enroll about 70 freshmen. So what I'm looking for typically is um, impactful, sort of the highest level freshmen and sophomores in the country is sort of what is what I'm looking for, because that is our main entry point. And then sort of in addition to that, I want high character kids. Very rarely will I recruit a kid that I don't get to know sort of your parents or your guardian or an adult that's really close to you, right? Because unlike college, this is high school. I need to know what cloth you're cut from. I need to know where you come from. So high character, the basketball component's always easy. But like finding the high character academic, student athlete who's young, that's sort of our range. And then, I usually get to sprinkle in, or we'll recruit 1 or 2 juniors. However, that gets much more specific for me because
Right.
those are like my immediate high level impact. Tyler Kolek was that guy for me. A young man who's at Assumption right now, Tayshawn Pemberton, was that guy for me. So, the juniors I do recruit, like I need all the stuff that I just described, and I need impact and production right away.
Now, and you mentioned Tyler Kolek. Tell me his story. How did he come to St. George's, and what made him special? Like what was his secret sauce that led him to the NBA?
Well, Tyler's recruitment story, a friend of mine actually had called me about Tyler Kolek. And I didn't think too much of it at the time because his brother had just graduated, I think, from St. Andrews. And St. Andrews, Coach Hart is my guy. He's done an amazing job for the past, 30 years over there. They've been a juggernaut in New England prep school basketball. So I was under the assumption that Tyler was just going to St. Andrews. So I never really did much, with the phone call that I got. And then it wasn't until later in December, same friend of mine gave me a call back and was like, "Hey, Tyler's still open." And that kind of got the ball rolling with his recruitment. At the time, we joke about it now. Brick School, I don't know if you know, but Coach McVeigh, I mean, that Brook School had won like 15 straight ISL championships. Again, we're a juggernaut in New England prep school basketball, but it was us in Brook School at the time, and Tyler didn't get into Brooks, so we came to St. George's. So it was a little bit by default, but from the time I started recruiting him, I knew he was different, and I think what separates him is it's his mentality and it's his work ethic, right? Like, let me back. Yeah, it's his mentality in terms of like his toughness. It's his work ethic, and then it's his IQ and feel and understanding of the game, which that can't be taught. I tell people this all the time. I think sort of what LeBron James brings to the game of basketball, holistically speaking, Tyler Kolek brings that in the aspect of IQ and feel. Like his ability to see and feel the game is the highest level. It's the 99th percentile of any basketball player.
So you think that you're born with that? You can't teach someone that?
What he has in terms of his feel, no.
Interesting. Okay. At St. George's, do your basketball players have to play multiple sports?
No, they don't. And that's something that's changed since when I first arrived here in 2016. That was the philosophy. We kind of shifted that mentality slowly and surely. We wanted to become the school where students can pursue their passion, right? So we didn't want to make somebody have to play softball if they didn't want to play.
Right.
And in doing that, we began to develop more opportunities in the afternoon outside of just sports. So like we have a robotics program, we have a surfing and leadership program, we have a robust strength and conditioning program. So like in some ways it has hurt some of our sports in terms of participation. Like, we lost our softball team partly because of that. And at the same time, we also allow students to pursue their passion. So, there's that balance with that.
Gotcha. All right. Thanks for sharing that. I'm glad you guys have evolved throughout the years on that, because that's what the kids coming there want to do, right? They want to play. There's pros and cons. You mentioned earlier you play multiple sports, obviously benefited you, but each situation is different. We're going to play a game now. There's no pressure. And I'm going to talk about some of the famous alumni from St. George's. I'm going to see if you know them or not. All right. We got 3 of them. And there are some real famous ones, but I picked out some I thought were interesting. So you ready to play?
I don't
All
know
right.
if I want to play this game. I don't know if I want to play this game.
Worst case, we'll both learn. Everyone will learn something. All right. Russell Train. Does that name ring a bell?
It does not.
He founded the World Wildlife Fund, WWF, the panda that you see all over the place.
Oh, okay.
Yep, that was him. How about Claiborne Pell?
I do know that name very well. Senator. Actually, there's a family member still very involved here at St. George's.
Yeah, and creator of the Pell Grant, which has helped
Yeah,
kids
Senator
from
Pell.
all
Yeah,
over, go to college. And then Howard Dean.
I do know him. Presidential candidate. I don't remember the year, but I believe he's from New Hampshire, maybe.
He was a senator from Vermont who ran for president in 2004. So um, you were 2 for 3. That's a passing score. So nice work. If you guys want to know more St. George's alum, go to their Wikipedia page. It's very impressive. These were just 3, just to give you guys a taste of just people from different industries. So walk me through this, Dwayne. What is your college placement strategy?
Again, I think I touched upon it a little bit earlier. It starts with making sure that me as the coach, whoever the student athlete is, and their family, we're sort of aligned with what level that they're seeking to play at. The other thing that's really evolved here at St. George's is our college counseling office now has sort of we've kind of tied the knot between college counseling, athletics, and the family now. So like it's this 3-pronged group that's working together to help the athlete and their family get to where they want to get. So that's first, is sort of just making sure that we're aligned. And then, I'm very familiar with a lot of the leagues in New England, from, the NE10 to the UAA, NESCAC, Patriot, Ivy, Big East, MAAC, CAA, familiar with all the leagues up north. I am sort of expanding, my knowledge of leagues outside of, the New England and Mid-Atlantic area. So sort of my job is, once we've kind of established a level that we think, and then we'll also reach out to the AAU coach, right, and get them involved, because a lot of the exposure comes from the AAU scene, where these guys can go play in a tournament in front of 50 coaches, whereas here, at St. George's, they only may be 2 or 3 coaches in the gym. But it just starts with making phone calls, sending emails to people that I know in the leagues that I think my guys can play in. And then sort of the exposure starts to happen, the spring of their junior year into the summer of their rising senior year. And that's kind of when we really get the ball moving forward.
Yeah, and you only having one team, you've only got a couple players to place every year, right? So your bandwidth is really focused on, what's the most you've had to place in 1 year? 5?
Last year, 5 of my guys got placed. Yep. So I had 3 kids play Division 1. 1 kid went to URI, Barrett Lower. Dylan Villette went to Merrimack. Giancarlos Cuerto went to North Carolina A&T. And then we had a kid go, Alan Wright went to Keene State. And then Bryson Carter is playing football at Dayton. But again, I think the recruitment piece happens, for me, a lot of it happens on the front end when I'm recruiting them. Like, I'm recruiting them with all right, this kid, high academics, I'm thinking, whether it's Vanderbilt, Stanford, Brown, Yale, all the way down to Brandeis, that's what I'm thinking on the front end. So if I do my job well on the front end, the back end, they're going to land somewhere, within that ballpark.
Right. Right. And then are you seeing the timing more in the fall now? Or are you placing kids in the spring? How are you doing it in your program?
It's,
Or is it case
I
by
think,
case?
no, it's probably more so in the spring. And I think because of, with the transfer portal, what that's done to high school athletes, it's kind of pushed everyone's timeline back a little bit. So uh, a handful of guys in the fall. I had one kid commit to Marist in the summer in August. Last year I had one kid, my kid who committed to 3 kids commit early in the fall. The 3 Division I kids, but it's either the fall or the spring.
Okay. Okay. Um, you guys playing Class B in the ISL. What do you say to people who are also looking at AA, AAA, single A schools, and they think that's a higher level? Like, you must deal with that. So what do you say to families that are curious about classes and if it matters or not?
Well, first I got to correct you. We're AA. We've been AA for 4 years.
I'm sorry on
Um,
that. My bad. My bad.
we made the transition. I think it was the year after COVID. And again, that was something that, that I wanted to do. I wanted to kind of create, uh, like a more, I don't want, challenge is not the right word, because there's some Class B and A schools that need us. But I think the depth of the AA, probably a little greater than the depth of the Class B pool. But Yeah, so being AA is, it's been a challenge. We've been in the playoffs each of our first 4 years, haven't been able to get out of the first round. Last year we were 25-6, had a great year, lost to Worcester Academy, who ended up winning the whole thing. But what I would say to families who, are questioning what level, I think everybody wants to play at the highest level. But the highest level, they can't take everybody. There's very good basketball at the Class B level, which we were in before going AA. There's very good level of basketball at the single A level. Just we thought it was right for St. George's, and I thought it was right for our program for us to make the move to AA. And I do think it does help. The perception of the league and sort of what the league is. It does help with recruiting.
Do you think now this is good? So you corrected me there, but you going from B and jumping up to AA, I would assume every game now is more of a knife fight, maybe than it would have been stereotypically at the B level. Would you agree to that, or what would be the biggest change you've seen?
Probably the biggest challenge I would say is the size in AA, and like playing against post grads more on a regular basis.
Right.
That's probably the biggest difference. And then I would agree with you that the AA night in and night out games, we have to play 14 of them. Could be a little more of a battle than it would be if we were playing 14 Class B games. Again, last year we were 25-6. We finished 13-2 in AA. We were really, really good year. It's sort of a tribute to our guys who, just put the work in.
Yeah, love that. Now, what do you see as the future of prep school basketball? Like in 5 years, if when we're talking again, like what's changing, what's been updated, what's maybe struggling?
Oh, well, another good question. I think so. The one of the thing that's not changing is schools like St. George's and other schools in the ISL. Like, just the tradition of these schools. We were founded in 1896. The history and the tradition, like, it's not going anywhere. It's just a matter of the St. George's, institutionally. What are the priorities? So I don't think that's going to change. But prep school basketball as a whole, there's, a brand new basketball academy. I don't know if you've heard about this. I think it's being built in just outside of Boston or Worcester. But it's going to have a sole focus. Their philosophy is going to be similar to IMG. So, like, yeah, that's going to throw a little ripple and create a little ripple in the pond. But still, like, that school's only going to be able to take 10 athletes. So, I mean, I don't think the landscape of prep school basketball in New England is going to change much. I mean, I think it's going to continue to excel as long as schools like St. George's, are around. I mean, that's, again, similar to, the Ivy League, Ivy League athletics, where are they going to go? They're still the Ivy League. So I do think that we have a pretty solid foundation, and, I wouldn't see much changing.
Okay. What does it take to be a guard at the D1 level today?
A guard at the D1 level. Uh,
It's a tough question, but we ask
Yeah,
every coach,
it,
Dwayne.
it's I mean, you got to have the talent, the skill level, the physical tools. I think really matter. I mean, you can have the talent, skill level, but just not physically be what they need you to be, and that may prevent you from getting to that level. Also think there's a huge difference in getting a Division I scholarship offer and being able to play at the Division I level. Because there's a lot of kids that can play at the Division I level that are at Division II and at Division I, right? That doesn't mean you're not a Division I player.
Yeah.
There's a lot of times college coaches get it wrong. Like a lot of times college coaches may not do their due diligence and miss out on a kid. College coaches may go and watch a kid work out and, spend 30 minutes on the phone instead of really being locked in. So again, I think a big part of just getting to that Division I level probably has a little more to do with your physical tools, your size, your athleticism, like than it does with like your actual, like your skill set. Like, cause there's a lot of really skilled players that can play Division I, but I think the offers come when, you add the other element, that size, that athleticism, that speed combined with those with the skill set.
All right. Thanks for sharing your opinion on that, especially with you coaching so many D1 players throughout the years. I think and you play at the D1 level. I think you can speak as good as anyone on this. You work in the admission department, excuse me. What do families need to know about applying to prep schools and specifically St. George? Like, is there any patterns you're seeing that families just don't quite grasp, or is there any suggestions you'd have for them?
Yeah, I mean, I think families need to realize and understand that it's a long process. Not as thorough as a college application process, but it's probably more thorough than you may think. So one of the things I would recommend is to get started on the process early. Um, you know, um, Engage coaches throughout the process so you can get on their radar. With schools like St. George's, we don't have open enrollment, right? So we have pretty strict deadlines. Our applications are due on January 15th. Our decisions come out on March 10th. We're a very healthy school. So typically, by April 10th, we're full, and then that's it. So like, we may not have any more beds. We may not have any more financial aid for families seeking that. So I would just say, get the process done early. I would also say, if you are looking at prep schools and you're coming from like a public school, be honest and upfront with your high school coach. The earlier you all can have that conversation, the much smoother that process will be. And it just makes the process that much smoother.
Interesting. Okay. And then for prep for like St. George, a lot of coaches will talk to a kid and they say, "Hey, just hit the inquire button on the admission page so we can get you in our system." Why is inquire? And this is not the application, folks. That takes a lot more work, but the inquiry is just putting in some basic information. Why is that important for families to do that for prep schools they're talking to?
Well, the inquiry gets you into the school's system, and what that does, it allows the school to communicate with you. That's it. So anything that's related to academics at the school, awards, the residential life community, whether there's a speaking engagement at the event, something going on with the basketball team, by inquiring, that puts you into the school's database, and then you are now enrolled sort of in their communication plan. It keeps you up to date with dates. Hey, January 15th is coming around, you have 2 weeks to complete your application. So it's just a way that we can communicate with you all.
Perfect. We're going to finish up here, Dwayne, with some quick hitters. All right. Who's the best player you ever played against?
Troy Bell.
Okay. Who's the best player you ever coached against at St. George?
Coached against at St. George's.
Someone that just lit you up.
I gotta think about that one for a second. There's been a lot of them. Probably AJ DeBansta.
Yeah, good answer. You're not the first one to say that name either. So, what's your favorite movie?
Favorite movie of all time? Another great question. I either got to go with Training Day or Shawshank Redemption.
Okay, two classics. And lastly, what are your hobbies when you're not doing the basketball or the school thing?
My hobbies, honestly, and it's funny because when a lot of people, when you're asked that question, you feel like you have to say something. But my hobby is when I think there's so much going on here, between, work-life balance. When we're off, I like to do nothing. Like, I like to just chill out, relax, spend time downtown in Newport. That's it. So like that's what I like to do.
Chilling out. I got you. I like it. Is there anything you want to touch on that we didn't talk about in this podcast?
No, I appreciate you having me on. Thanks for the opportunity to talk a little bit about, my story in St. George's and prep school basketball.
Perfect. Well, thanks for joining us today, Dwayne. And if you guys like this podcast, be sure to subscribe on all the major podcasting platforms, subscribe to YouTube, and go to our homepage, prepathletics.com, and reach out to us if you have any questions about the prep school world. We'd be happy to help you. If you're interested in St. George's, all of Dwayne's contact information will be in the show notes below. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time on the Prep Athletics Podcast. Take care.